Alien Queen terrified every suitor, until a human mechanic dared to hug her. Every suitor in the galaxy bolted from the Alien Queen's fury, until one exhausted human mechanic simply wrapped his arms around her and didn't run. Before we jump into this sci-fi love story, say hi in the comments and tell me what planet, country, or city you're watching from. It boosts the channel a ton and helps more people find stories like this human meets alien romance. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. Across the stars, people whispered about Queen Nixura of the Lamidian Empire. Some called her a living storm, some called her a goddess of war, but everyone agreed on one thing. Her temper had sent the bravest nobles in 3 sectors sprinting for the nearest escape pod. Her rage wasn't just a rumor, it was a legend. Her palace floated high in the atmosphere of the gas giant Azura Prime. From orbit, it looked like a cluster of diamonds frozen mid-explosion, each spire locked in place by ancient gravity engines built by a civilization older than the Empire itself. Inside, crystal corridors glowed with soft light, and every surface looked like it belonged in a museum. Today, however, the serene beauty shattered under a scream that shook the palace's foundations. "Incompetent cowards, the lot of you!" Queen Nixura's voice thundered through the crystalline halls as she hurled a delicate, shimmering artifact into the wall. It exploded into glittering fragments, a priceless sculpture from the proconsul of Riel 7 reduced to dust. "You dare bring me another trembling, spineless suitor?" she growled, bioluminescent patterns flaring bright red beneath her translucent skin. "Do you think my time is so worthless?" Minister Thalios, the elderly royal matchmaker, ducked behind a decorative pillar and wished he were young enough to sprint. He'd served 3 generations of Lamidian rulers, but none had been as terrifying or as stubborn as Nixura. "Your Radiance," he stammered, peeking out. "Prince Dorivan of the Celestial Houses is widely considered the most eligible bachelor in 3-star systems. His lineage is flawless, and his contributions to astrophysics." "He squeaked," Nixura snapped. Thalios blinked. "Your Radiance?" He squeaked. She repeated, her eyes glowing with furious light. "I asked for his stance on military expansion and the future of border security, and he squeaked. Then he fainted when I raised my voice." She turned to the massive viewport, staring out at the swirling blues and purples of Azura Prime's atmosphere, trying and failing to calm herself. "What use is a consort who keels over because I ask a difficult question?" she muttered. "I'm not searching for a fragile ornament. I need someone who can stand at my side." At 32 stellar cycles, Lamidian Customs said she should already have chosen a consort. She had no shortage of candidates. She ruled 27 star systems, commanded absurd wealth, and her beauty had inspired entire poetic epics. The issue wasn't quantity. It was quality. "Find me someone with a spine, Thalios," she said, quieter now, but no less intense. "Someone who doesn't crumble when I speak. Someone who doesn't drown me in flattery and lies." "Is that really so unreasonable?" Thalios straightened his ornate robes, trying to recover his dignity. "Your Radiance, perhaps if you would consider softening your approach just a little. The intimidation ritual was meant as a symbolic courtship test. Your enthusiasm for it has, added to your reputation." Nixura spun, towering over him. "Moderate my approach. Pretend to be meek so that I can trick some noble in a marriage, only to reveal my true nature afterward? Begin my union with a lie? That is not our way. I will be accepted as I am, or not at all." Before Thalios could answer, the palace shook with a deep crash, followed by blaring alarms. Lights shifted to emergency crimson, and distant shouts echoed from the lower levels. The captain of the Royal Guard, Kel, burst through the doors, crystalline armor flashing under the alarm lights. "Your Radiance, there's been an incident in the Western Atmospheric Docking Bay. One of the maintenance craft suffered catastrophic gravitational failure. It tore through 3 levels and crashed into the Ancestral Hall. Injuries reported, but no deaths so far." "How could that happen?" Nixura demanded. "Our docking systems have triple redundancies." Kel's jaw tightened. "The vessel isn't Lamidian. It's human. A repair ship contracted to service the atmospheric stabilizers. Nixura's luminescent markings flickered from red to startled gold. Humans? In my palace? Who authorized this? Thalios raised a hand in reluctant admission. That would be me, your radiance. The quantum harmonizers in your stabilizers required specialized attention. The Terra Mechanics Guild is widely regarded as the best in the galaxy for improvising solutions to complex engineering problems. Their reputation is stellar. Nixura swept past them both. I will see this personally. Kel, assemble a medical team and containment units if that human ship damaged the Ancestral Hall. The Ancestral Hall was the heart of the palace, a sacred chamber lined with crystal memory matrices that housed the preserved consciousness echoes of Lamidian rulers past, a living archive of power and history. Now, that solemn hall had a giant hole punched through its ceiling. A blocky, utilitarian human maintenance vessel sat wedged in the wreckage like a metal scar. Where Lamidian ships were all elegant curves and transparent crystal, this thing was pure function, dull metal, exposed plating, and ugly weld lines. Painted across its side in several languages, including Standard Galactic, was the cheerful slogan. Stellar Solutions. No job too big, no malfunction too weird. Nixura's guards formed a ring as she advanced. Shattered crystal, fractured columns, and drifting smoke filled the air. The damaged ceiling opened directly into Azura Prime's sky, where swirling gas clouds glowed in eerie colors beyond the emergency shields. With a hiss, a side hatch on the human ship slid open. Thick smoke poured out, followed by a harsh cough. A human stepped out, shielding his face. He was male, dressed in a plain gray jumpsuit now smeared with grease and soot. A tool belt sagged on his hips, loaded with gadgets. A chest patch read, Tyler, Stellar Solutions. Well, he rasped to the air. That didn't go according to the brochure. He turned back toward the ship. Vex, buddy, you still in one piece? Another figure stumbled out. This time a Nexian, one of the small four-armed quantum engineers known throughout the galaxy. His silver-blue skin shimmered under the hall lights, and all four hands were waving angrily. I told you the graviton inverter was misaligned. Tyler, the Nexian snapped, voice high and musical. But no, you said, it'll hold until we dock. Stop worrying. Hey, Tyler said, clapping him on the back. On the bright side, we're inside the palace. Just not exactly through the front door. That was the moment he finally noticed the ring of armed guards, and the 7-foot-tall, luminous queen staring at him like a storm about to break. The Nexian, Vex, dropped to his knees at once, all four hands raised. Your Radiance, forgive us. The crash was an accident, a terrible accident. Tyler did not kneel. He stared right back at Nixura. Then he smiled. Not the strained smile of a man begging for mercy. A real smile. Relaxed. Open. Hey, he said casually. So, I'm going to guess from the crown, the glowing skin, and all the very sharp weapons aim my direction that you're in charge. Gasps rippled through the staff. Kel's hand flew to his weapon. You will address her as Queen Nixura, Kel barked. Sovereign of the Lamidian Empire, keeper of the eternal light, protector of the 27 realms. That is a lot of titles, Tyler said, slightly wide-eyed. He wiped his hand on his already filthy jumpsuit and stuck it out toward her anyway. Tyler Grant, lead mechanic. Nice to meet you, your Radiance. The hall seemed to freeze. No one offered the queen a handshake like she was some middle management official in a spaceport office. Nixura stared at his hand, then at his face. Brown eyes, she noted distantly. A common human color. But what was uncommon was what wasn't in them. No fear, no calculation, no greasy flattery. Just straightforward awareness. You, she said at last, ignoring the offered hand, have crashed into a sacred hall, damaged priceless history, endangered my people, and interrupted my state affairs. Explain yourself. Tyler dropped his hand, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, that's fair. Total pilot error on my part. The graviton inverter was overdue for replacement. Standard part, easy swap, but I try to stretch it to finish your stabilizer work first. Dumb choice. Failure's on me, not on my partner, not on the guild. I'll fix everything we broke. You have my word. Silence settled again. Nixura was used to excuses, to lies, to groveling, to people blaming faulty censors, inferior subordinates, enemy sabotage, anything but themselves. A palace attendant raced up, breathless. Your Radiance. 2 maintenance workers were in this sector during the crash. They're pinned under debris along the eastern wall. Before Nixura could respond, Tyler was already moving. He slipped past the guards with the easy certainty of someone who cared more about injured strangers than his own neck. Vex grabbed the emergency kit and a portable lifter, he called, sprinting toward the crushed section of wall. Kel moved to restrain him, but Nixura raised a hand. Let him work. They reached the wreckage. Slabs of crystal and stone collapsed in a jagged heap. Tyler dropped to his knees, pressing his ear against the debris. Hey, he called gently. Can you hear me in there? A faint voice answered, panicked but alive. Okay, he said, more to himself than anyone else. He ran his hands over the rubble, testing weight and stability. Vex hurried back with a compact case and a flat disc-like device. Tyler took the disc and glanced up just long enough to address her. Gravity manipulator. Cuts effective mass by about 80%, so we can move the big stuff without crushing anyone. But we gotta be smart about the order. Pull the wrong piece, everything collapses harder. Nixura nodded once. What do you need? If Tyler was surprised, he didn't show it. Extra hands. He set the manipulator and adjusted settings. On 3, we're gonna slide this piece sideways, not up. Up is bad. Ready? 1, 2, 3. The device hummed, the slab's weight easing. Without pausing, Nixura knelt beside him, royal robes in the dust, bracing her shoulders against the stone. Together, human and queen shoved the debris aside, revealing a small cavity where 2 Lamidian workers huddled, shaken but unhurt. For the next hour, Tyler and Vex worked like they were built for emergencies. They coordinated with palace medics, secured loose supports, and stabilized damaged structures. Tyler's instructions were fast and clear, and he never once raised his voice. He treated everyone the same, from royal physicians to low-rank staff, like they were just people trying to get through a bad day. When the last injured worker was cleared and the hall stabilized, Tyler finally approached the queen again, sweat dampening his hair, soot on his forehead. Everyone's accounted for, he reported. No critical injuries. Your medical team is impressive, by the way. And your ship? Nixura asked, eyeing the ugly vessel wedged in her ancient hull. Tyler grimaced. Reparable. It'll take some time and parts, but she'll fly again. More importantly, your atmospheric stabilizers still need work. Whatever issues you were having before the crash, they're serious. You crash into my palace, damage my ancestral hall, and still expect to continue as if nothing happened? Nixura asked. Tyler blinked. Your floating palace relies on aging gravitational systems in a volatile atmosphere. Those stabilizers go, this whole complex starts dropping. So yeah, with respect, I think you still want me on the job. Right on cue, the floor trembled and the lights flickered. Tyler tilted his head, listening to a vibration only he seemed to notice. That'll be the first stage of harmonic degradation. Next comes power cycling, then structural warnings, then he whistled softly, hands spiraling downward. Kel's eyes widened. You're saying this palace is in danger? Not falling apart right now, danger, Tyler said. But fix it today, danger? Definitely. Nixura made her choice. Captain Kel assigned guards to escort Tyler Grant and his associate to the Atmosphere Control Center. Thalios arranged temporary quarters for our guests until their vessel is repaired. She fixed Tyler with a sharp gaze. You will repair what you damaged and complete the work you were hired to do. Then you will leave. Understood. Tyler gave a sloppy little salute that would have made any drill instructor faint. Crystal clear, your Radiance. We'll have your systems singing again before long. As he walked away, chatting with Vex like nothing unusual had happened, Nixura watched him with narrowed eyes. From a moment he'd stumbled out of the smoking ship until now, he had never once flinched from her. Not when she towered over him. Not when her skin pulsed with warning patterns. not when weapons were drawn. It was refreshing and deeply suspicious. "Kel," she murmured, "keep that human in your sights at all times. Run a complete background check. I want to know everything about Tyler Grant. Do you suspect a plot? Your radiance?" Kel asked. "I suspect nothing," she admitted. "And that, Captain, is unusual enough to worry me." Part 2. Over the next 3 days, the royal palace became obsessed with one topic: the human mechanic who didn't fear the queen. Stories spread faster than data through a quantum relay. Staff whispered in kitchens and corridors about how he'd improvised a custom tool from scrap to reach a hidden connector. How he'd reprogrammed a diagnostic array with nothing but a portable console and some muttered math. How he'd calmly coordinated the rescue in the ancestral hall like he'd done it 1,000 times. Someone mentioned that he'd wandered into the palace kitchens one evening and taught the staff how to make a Terran dish called chili. Half the palace was now mildly addicted, and the head chef was requesting more human recipes. But what really fueled the gossip wasn't his skills. It was that Queen Nixura kept visiting the atmosphere control center. Twice, she had swept in, robes flowing, guards in formation, clearly ready to intimidate, demand progress, and scorch anyone who annoyed her. Twice, she had left not in a towering fury, but in what witnesses could only describe as baffled irritation, as if she tried to get angry and somehow kept missing her mark. On the morning of the 4th day, Nixura summoned Kel to her private chambers. "Well," she asked without preamble, "did your investigation uncover anything?" Kel consulted his tablet. Tyler Grant, age 29 standard years. Human from Earth, region called Montana. Trained at Terra Mechanical Academy, graduated with honors. Employed by Stellar Solutions for 7 years. Long record of successful high-risk repairs in 12-star systems. No criminal offenses. No suspicious affiliations. No obvious ties to enemies of the Lamidian Empire. And Nixura pressed. Kel hesitated. His personnel file notes, he was raised primarily by his grandmother after losing his parents in an industrial accident when he was young. His supervisor describes him as highly adaptable with unusual emotional intelligence and a strong ability to read the room, as humans phrase it. That's all. Nixura frowned. No secret agenda, no political strings, no hidden dynastic connection. Nothing, Your Radiance, Kel said. He appears to be exactly what he claims to be, a very good mechanic with a habit of throwing himself into dangerous situations to help people. Nixura turned toward the viewport. Azura Prime storm bands swirled below in slow, hypnotic patterns. It annoyed her that the simple explanation might be true, that sometimes a person could just be straightforward. "The atmospheric systems?" she asked. "Fully repaired," Kel said, "and improved. Our chief engineer reports that your stabilizers are running better than they have in decades." Grant identified several inefficiencies in the original configuration. Nixura's expression tightened at the last part. "And his ship? Repairs nearly complete. He estimates departure by tomorrow morning." The odd, weightless ache at that news startled her. She pushed it aside. "Prepare a formal acknowledgement of service before they leave," she said. "Standard contractor recognition protocol only. No special ceremony." "As you wish," Kel replied, bowing out. Left alone, Nixura thought of the human who spoke to her as if she were just a person, who accepted responsibility without begging, who looked her in the eyes and did not flinch. Those who dealt with her usually fell into one of two categories: terrified or manipulative. Tyler Grant was neither. He'd given her respect, yes, but not worship. It was unsettling and compelling. In the atmospheric control center, Tyler lay half inside an access panel that palace technicians swore had been sealed for 50 years. "Quantum phase aligner," he called, voice muffled by wiring. Vex passed him the requested tool, all 4 hands working in different directions. "You know," Vex said, "most people would be content with systems stable as a finishing state. You have repeatedly crossed the line into reckless tinkering." "There's a difference between stable and optimal," Tyler replied. "These stabilizers are holding up a palace the size of a city in gas giant winds. They deserve the full treatment. The aligner word. Tyler adjusted something invisible to everyone else in the room. This ring, he said, backing out of the panel and wiping his hands on a rag, had 3 microfractures. Give those a year, and you're looking at a cascading failure. No explosion, just a fun little localized gravity nightmare. The lead Lamidian engineer, Soren, watched him with open awe. How did you know to check the secondary harmonization ring? It isn't in any of our maintenance logs. Pattern looked familiar, Tyler said. Power fluctuations reminded me of a Denian cruise liner that tried to cheap out on upgrades last year. Different hardware. Same underlying physics. He stretched, spine popping. Anyway, she's running at around 115% of previous efficiency now. Redundancy's active. I left detailed notes and highlighted the problem zones. You're good for another century or so if you keep up with the schedules. Soren bowed deeply. The palace is in your debt, Technician Grant. Just doing my job, Tyler said, clearly uncomfortable with grand statements. And seriously, call me Tyler. As he and Vex packed up, the Nexian leaned close. The Queen has been asking questions about you. Tyler's brows rose. That's so? What kind of questions? The kind that suggests she cannot categorize you, Vex answered. You do not behave as anyone expects. You talk to her directly. You look her in the eyes. You do not shake when she approaches. By Lamidian standards, your behavior borders on revolutionary. Tyler snorted. I'm just treating her like a human. Well, you know what I mean. A person, ruler or not. She still breathes, thinks, gets tired. Must be exhausting having everyone treat you like you're about to explode. That's precisely why no one does what you do, Vex said. A sovereign is not approached as a person, but as an institution. There are 17 prescribed steps for greeting her. 17, Tyler groaned. No wonder she's always tense. Before Vex could reply, a palace attendant entered, bowing stiffly. Technician Grant. Her radiance requests your presence at the evening meal in the Great Hall. Formal attire is required. Tyler blinked. Dinner with the Queen? Pretty sure I forgot my royal banquet outfit in the crash. Suitable garments will be provided, the attendant said. You will be escorted to your quarters, then to the royal tailor. The meal begins at the setting of Azura Prime's 3rd moon. After the attendant left, Vex stared at Tyler with all 4 eyes wide. A personal invitation to dine with the Queen. Either you're greatly honored, or you are in grave trouble. Probably both, Tyler muttered. The great hall of the Lamidian palace looked like the inside of a star. The vaulted crystal ceiling showed the storms of Azura Prime and the stars beyond. The walls glowed with luminescent minerals that shifted colors based on the emotional tone of the room. The polished floor looked as if galaxies had been trapped beneath glass. Tyler walked in wearing the formal outfit the royal tailor had assembled in record time, a hybrid between a robe and a suit made of a fabric that caught light and seemed to glow faintly. It was surprisingly comfortable. He'd drawn the line at the towering ceremonial headpiece, though. There were limits. Conversations stuttered as he crossed the hall under escort. Whispers swirled behind his back. That's the human mechanic. He spoke to her radiance without kneeling. He offered her his hand. At the far end, Queen Nixura sat on a raised dais, her throne a prismatic sculpture that scattered light across the hall. Tonight, she wore deep azure robes streaked with what looked like moving constellations. Silver-white hair coiled in intricate braids woven with glowing gems, and under her translucent skin, her bioluminescence flowed in calm, measured currents. Tyler caught his breath despite himself. For a moment, the whole queen of a giant space empire thing hit him all at once. The arrival of Tyler Grant of Earth, the major domo announced, voice echoing. Tyler walked forward. Someone had drilled basic protocol into him before this, and he did his best approximation of the required bow. It wasn't textbook perfect, but at least it wasn't insulting. Technician Grant, Nixura said, studying him, your work on our atmospheric systems has been satisfactory. Judging from the slight stir among nearby nobles, that was extremely high praise. Thank you. Your radiance, Tyler said. It's an incredible system. Whoever designed it really knew what they were doing. My great-grandmother, Nixura replied, a thread of pride weaving into her voice. Queen Lyra. She designed the initial architecture herself. Well, she built something meant to last, Tyler said. With proper care, those stabilizers will keep your palace afloat longer than either of us will be around to see. A murmur went through the court at this casual exchange. Nixura silenced it with a glance. You will sit beside me, she announced. The evening meal begins. More whispers. Being seated at the queen's right hand was normally reserved for high-ranking dignitaries or close family. Yet here sat a human mechanic, right where princes and prime ministers usually fought to be. Course after course appeared, floating sapphire spheres, shimmering ribbons of something that tasted like citrus and starlight, dishes that hovered, inverted, or changed temperature as he ate. Tyler approached everything with open curiosity, asking about customs and trade routes, and which dishes were associated with which treaties or anniversaries. Nixura found herself explaining traditions she had long since stopped thinking about. This one, she said, indicating a hovering blue sphere, was created to commemorate the concord that ended our war with the draconian hegemony 3 centuries ago. The suspension effect symbolizes the delicate balance of power. Tyler carefully trapped the sphere with his utensils, earning a few impressed glances. Diplomacy's a lot like engineering, he said after tasting it. People love the big moment when the treaty is signed, same way they love the moment a system goes online. But the real work comes after: constant monitoring, adjustment, fixing little problems before they blow up. Nixura tilted her head. You compare interstellar politics to machine maintenance. Pretty much, Tyler said. You ignore tension long enough, something breaks. Seen it on starships and in governments. You've studied political theory? She asked. Not formally, he said, but fixing things on luxury liners, military cruisers, city stations, you see how power really works. And people talk around the repair guy like he's furniture. You'd be amazed what I've overheard. This drew an actual laugh from Nixura, soft but genuine. Nearby attendants nearly dropped their trays. As the evening progressed, Tyler noticed that whenever conversation drifted toward heavy matters, trade disputes, territorial conflicts, succession laws, Nixura's inner light scaled up. Her pattern sped, brightened, sharpened. Her face stayed composed, her voice controlled. But under the surface, she was blazing. During a lull between courses, he leaned slightly toward her and spoke just loud enough for her to hear. We've got a saying on my home world, he murmured. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Seems like that tracks across species. Her luminosity flickered in surprise. What do you mean? Just that ruling an empire looks lonely, he said quietly. Everyone either wants something from you or is terrified of you. That's a lot to carry. For a heartbeat, her carefully arranged expression slipped. He saw something raw, surprise, maybe even relief at being so plainly seen. You are observant for a technician, she said softly. Occupational hazard, Tyler replied with a little shrug. Noticing patterns. And for the record, your luminescence goes into overdrive when you're stressed. Most people probably don't pick up on it, but I thought you should know. Could be useful in negotiations. Her posture stiffened. My bioluminescent patterns are a natural Lamidian trait. They do not. I'm not criticizing, he said quickly. Just sharing data. Systems under strain always show signs. Power grids. Humans. Alien queens. Before she could respond, and possibly ban him from the palace forever, the doors at the far end of the hall slammed open. The major domo's voice rang out, uncomfortable and grand at the same time. The most serene Prince Valerian of the Astral Dominion, heir to the Celestial Throne, commander of the Quantum Fleet, guardian of the Eternal Flame, and suitor to her radiance, Queen Nixura. An imposing man strode in, surrounded by an entourage dripping in starlit fabric and polished armor. Prince Valerian was handsome in the way statues were. Sharp lines, cold eyes, perfectly arranged. His uniform seemed woven from night sky, dotted with moving points of light. At his hip, a ceremonial weapon pulsed with contained energy. The entire hall rose. Everyone except Nixura, who remained seated, face suddenly blank, light flaring sharp red beneath her skin. "Your radiance," Valerian called, voice carrying effortlessly. "I return to renew my courtship, as is my right according to the accords between our peoples." "Your arrival was not announced," Nixura said coolly. "Protocol exists for a reason, Prince Valerian." "A minor logistics issue," he dismissed, smiling. "Surely unimportant next to the greatest alliance the galaxy has ever seen. Your realm and mine united. Who could stand against us?" As he drew closer, Tyler saw the calculation in his eyes. The prince's gaze flicked to the human seated at the queen's right. For a moment, confusion flickered, then dismissal. "You honor us, Prince Valerian," Nixura said in a tone that made it clear she meant exactly the opposite. "However, as you can see, we are in the middle of a formal meal. There will be a more suitable time for—" "Surely a place can be made at your side," Valerian interrupted. "We were nearly betrothed as children. Why delay the inevitable?" Shock rippled through the hall, dropping her title, interrupting her in her own palace. It was a dangerous level of arrogance. "You presume much," Nixura said softly, her voice going from cool to lethal. "There is no formal betrothal. Your suit has been rejected 3 times according to the laws you claim to honor. Appearing uninvited like this is a breach of diplomatic conduct." Valerian's expression hardened. "And yet you seat a human mechanic at your right hand while a prince stands waiting like a petitioner. Rumors of your eccentric choices seem to be true." The room went silent. Nixura rose slowly, every inch of her radiating authority. "My so-called eccentricities," she said, "include insisting on proper respect from those who pretend to seek my hand. They also include the sovereign right to choose who sits at my table, whether prince or technician." Tension spiked. Nobles shifted nervously. Guards silently adjusted position around the hall. Tyler saw exactly where this was heading. Full public explosion, possible diplomatic incident, maybe even the kind of grudge that ended with ships facing off in orbit. Without fully thinking it through, he got to his feet. "Your Radiance," he said, pitching his voice carefully. "If it helps, I can give up my seat. It's been a long day. I could use some sleep before we finish prepping the ship." Every eye in the hall snapped to him, some full of horror, some of disbelief that a human would step into the blast zone voluntarily. Nixura stared at him, her internal patterns flickering through colors he couldn't decode. "Your consideration is noted," she said at last, "but unnecessary." Prince Valerian was just leaving. Valerian flushed. "This insult will not be forgotten. You cling to control so fiercely you will end up alone, Nixura. The future belongs to alliances, not solitary queens. The future belongs to those who refuse to be coerced," she answered icily. "Your proposed alliance demands sacrifices I will not make and offers nothing my people cannot achieve alone." Her gaze sharpened. "You may leave under your own power, or my guards will escort you. Choose." For a heartbeat, Tyler thought Valerian might push further. Then the prince took in the circle of armored guards and the queen's unyielding stance. He bowed just deeply enough to avoid outright offense and stalked out, entourage scrambling after him. As the doors closed, the hall exhaled as one. "My apologies for the interruption," Nixura said, taking her seat with regal calm. "Let us continue." They did, but her inner light stayed agitated, pulsing hard and fast. She barely touched the next course. After a while, Tyler leaned toward her again, keeping his voice low. "I've been stuck on a mechanical problem all day," he said. "Could use someone smart to help me think it through. Maybe somewhere less crowded." It was an obviously flimsy excuse. She knew it. He knew it. But it offered something rare, a graceful exit. Nixura considered him for 2 long seconds. Then she nodded. "I find technical puzzles relaxing. Thalios, you will oversee the rest of the meal." The old minister bowed so deeply he nearly folded in half. "As you command, your radiance." Tyler followed Nixura out, ignoring the sea of curious stares. Guards trailed at a respectful distance as they walked through quiet, dimly lit corridors until they reached a small terrace jutting into Azura Prime's atmosphere. A faint field shimmered at its edges, keeping air in while leaving the view open. Outside, colossal storm bands rolled below, lit by distant lightning. Above, stars pierced the thinning sunset. Nixura dismissed the guards to the doorway and stepped to the edge. Tyler joined her a moment later. "There is no mechanical problem, is there?" she said. "Not one that couldn't wait," he admitted. "You look like you needed an emergency exit more than I needed to talk about voltage levels." "You presume much," she said, but there was no heat in it. "Maybe," he said, "but I know that look. People under pressure get that same tight focus right before something snaps. I've seen it with captains, engineers, dock masters, and now queens." "I'm not people," Nixura replied automatically. "I am the embodiment of Lamidian sovereignty." "Sure," Tyler said, "and I'm just a mechanic. But underneath all that, you're still a person who has good days and bad days. You get frustrated. You get lonely. You get irritated by obnoxious princes who don't listen." She stared out at the storms for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "You saw what happened tonight," she said. "Variations of that scene have occurred 17 times in the last 2 years. 17 suitors, each promising political advantage. None of them interested in me as an individual, only in what marrying me gives them." 17 rejections, Tyler said softly. "That's a lot of pressure. What I want," she said, "is someone who sees me. Not a crown, not a strategic asset. Someone who can stand beside me without being crushed or trying to dominate in return. Someone with their own strength." She shook her head. "My advisors call it unreasonable." "Doesn't sound unreasonable," Tyler said. "Just rare. And honestly, you're probably not going to find it in people who show up with armies and ultimatums." She turned to him, eyes glowing softly. "What do you see when you look at me, Tyler Grant?" He met her gaze, slow and honest. "I see someone carrying so much responsibility, it's a miracle you're not screaming all the time. Someone smart. Someone scary, sure, but not unfair. And yeah, someone who's probably lonelier than anyone around you realizes. Surrounded by people, but never really met." Her patterns shifted into a calmer, steady glow. "You are very perceptive for a man who crashes ships," she said. "Part of the job," he replied. "Can't fix anything if you don't understand how the whole system fits together." People included. They fell into a quiet that felt strange but comfortable. Out beyond the terrace, lightning flashed in the clouds like distant camera flashes. Eventually, Nixura sighed. "Your ship will be ready by morning." "That's the plan," Tyler said. "New graviton inverter cleaned up systems. Try to avoid using your ancestral hall as a parking space this time." A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "That would be appreciated." They stood there a while longer, two very different beings looking out at the same sky, both realizing that something between them had shifted. Neither could quite name it yet, but neither wanted to pretend it wasn't there. The morning after the dinner confrontation arrived in a wash of golden light, filtered through the upper layers of Azura Prime's atmosphere. Tyler and Vex stood in the now repaired docking bay, running final checks on their ship. It was almost strange seeing it whole again, restored from the twisted wreck it had been when they'd slammed through the palace ceiling. Now the vessel hummed with clean energy, panels smooth, stabilizers recalibrated, diagnostics all reading green. For a moment, Tyler allowed himself to feel proud, until the sound of hurried footsteps pulled him from his thoughts. A palace attendant approached with the stiffest posture Tyler had ever seen on a person who wasn't carved from marble. He bowed low. "Technician Grant," he said, breath controlled but urgent. "Her radiance requires your presence in the Sovereign's chamber." Immediately, Tyler blinked. "Now, we're supposed to launch in under an hour." "The Queen's summons supersede all scheduling," the attendant replied with a tight smile that suggested he'd had to repeat that phrase often. "Your associate may continue preparations." Vex folded two of his arms and flicked his other two toward Tyler. "Go. If the Queen commands, you obey. And try not to insult her or die." "No promises," Tyler muttered, wiping his hands on a rag before following the attendant. The Sovereign's chamber was not the grand throne room he'd expected. Instead, it was a quiet, surprisingly intimate space lit by soft blue light reflecting off crystalline walls. The ceiling displayed a real-time map of the galaxy, stars shifting in slow arcs, nebulae blooming like frozen fireworks. At the center sat Queen Nixura, dressed simply, if anything in Lamidian royal attire could be called simple. Her robes today were form-fitting and unadorned except for faint threads of silver that caught the light when she moved. She looked less like a mythic ruler and more like someone preparing for a difficult conversation. "Your Radiance," Tyler said, attempting another bow. It went slightly better than last time. She waved for him to sit. "There's a matter we must discuss before your departure." Tyler settled across from her, conscious of the silence that seemed to soften around them. Usually her presence filled a room like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Today she was calm, focused but not sharp. "I have reviewed the final reports on your work," Nixura began. "Your improvements to our atmospheric stabilizers exceed all projections. My engineers estimate an additional century of operational lifespan." Tyler exhaled. "Glad it helped. It's a beautiful system." "It is a vital system," she corrected gently. "The palace exists only because of it." She paused, fingers tapping the desk once. Barely perceptible, but enough to betray tension. "For this reason," she continued, "I wish to offer you a permanent position within the palace. Chief Technical Advisor to the Sovereign. You would oversee all systems, supervise upgrades, and have full authority to intervene where needed." Tyler blinked. "Twice. You want to hire me?" "Full-time." "Correct. That's flattering," he said slowly. "Really flattering. But I already have a job. A good one. And Vex and I, we go where needed. I kind of like the unpredictability. Your employer will be compensated." "That's not the issue," he replied. "My life isn't meant to stay in one place. No offense, Your Radiance, but palace walls are pretty fixed." A faint flicker passed through her luminescent patterns. Disappointment, maybe, or frustration. He wasn't fluent in Lamidian physiology yet. "You would be granted exemptions from protocol," she said. "You would not be constrained the way others at court are." He couldn't help the small grin. "You mean I could still talk to you like a normal person?" Nixura's lips curved almost imperceptibly. "Within reason." Tyler sobered. "It's still not something I can promise. But maybe there's a middle path." Nixura tilted her head. "Explain." "You let me keep my job. Keep traveling. But when your systems need tuning or you want outside perspective, you bring me back as a consultant." A slow, thoughtful brightness glowed beneath her skin. "A flexible arrangement," she said. "Untraditional, but acceptable." Tyler nodded. "Then we have an understanding." Nixura rose and crossed to the large viewport, watching the storms below twist in endless spirals. "Last night," she said softly, "you spoke of seeing me as a person, not only a crown. That is rare." He joined her, leaving a respectful distance. "Everyone needs someone who sees them." "And what do you see now?" she asked without turning. "A queen," he answered truthfully, "but also a woman who carries too much alone." Nixura turned toward him, and for a moment her bioluminescence pulsed brighter, almost wildly. She extended her hand, an unmistakably human gesture she'd adopted only once before. Tyler took it. The moment their skin touched, a jolt surged through both of them, like static electricity fused with warmth and something almost alive. Nixura gasped and pulled back, staring at her hand. "That reaction," she murmured, "is unheard of. A biochemical resonance. Rare. Unpredictable." Tyler tried to steady his voice. "So, chemistry?" Her cheeks flushed a faint lavender. "In your terms, yes." His communicator buzzed. Vex's voice crackled through. "Systems ready. Launch window in 20 minutes. Nixura straightened. Regal again, but softer somehow. "Then you should go." "I'll be back in 6 weeks," Tyler promised. "Assuming no emergencies." "Emergencies are inevitable," Nixura said quietly. "But so is your return." He bowed, truly bowed, then left the chamber with something tight and strange in his chest. By midday, he and Vex departed the palace, leaving Nixura on the balcony watching their ship vanish into the sky. She wasn't sure what she felt, but she knew she would feel it again. The following days in the palace unfolded with an unusual rhythm, calmer, quieter, subtly transformed. Something in Queen Nixura's demeanor had shifted after Tyler's departure, though few understood why. Servants noticed first. She issued fewer sharp rebukes, listened longer before rendering judgment, and moved with a contemplative patience that surprised even her closest attendants. Ministers whispered to one another in astonishment after council meetings that ended without a single eruption of temper. Rumors bloomed like blossoms in spring, wild, colorful, and rarely accurate. Some claimed the queen had undergone a secret spiritual retreat. Others insisted she'd been healed by an ancient relic recovered from the palace archives. A persistent theory suggested she'd suffered a minor neurological episode that rendered her temperament subdued. Another faction insisted she had found religion. One particularly imaginative rumor proposed she had been replaced by a near-perfect clone. No one suspected the truth. She missed the human mechanic. Nixura caught herself glancing at the docking bay status feeds more often than necessary. At night, she found her thoughts drifting, against her will, toward the easy confidence in Tyler's voice, the warm steadiness of his gaze, the way he spoke to her without fear or calculation. She replayed their last exchange more times than she cared to admit. The strange, startling resonance that surged through them when their hands touched lingered in her mind like an unanswered question. She had never experienced such a reaction with any Lamidian suitor. It defied logic. It defied protocol. It defied the clean walls she built around her emotions years ago to survive the throne. And yet she did not reject it. Unacceptable, she told herself. Irresponsible. Dangerous. Yet she could not deny the truth beneath all that discipline. For the first time in her reign, she felt seen. Meanwhile, far beyond Azura Prime's swirling clouds, Tyler and Vex were already knee-deep in their next job, a malfunctioning terraforming array on Proxima, 3 that had been producing lakes of jellied water. Tyler crouched inside a tangled framework of tubes and quantum manifold nodes, elbow-deep in sticky polymer residue. "Hand me the phase oscillator," he called. Vex passed it with 2 hands while the other 2 held a schematic. "You have been unusually distracted," the Nexian observed. "Your efficiency is down 12%. Tyler snorted. 12%? Really? I measured. Vex said with absolute seriousness. "You sigh frequently. You stare into the distance. You smile for no reason. It's inefficient." Tyler wiped goo from his sleeve. "I'm thinking. That is what concerns me," Vex replied. "Humans overthink. It leads to emotional entanglement. Emotional entanglement leads to catastrophe when royalty is involved." Tyler tightened a seal and checked a readout. "I'm not entangled." "You are entangled," Vex said flatly. Tyler paused. "Okay, maybe a little entangled." Vex groaned melodically. "Tyler, monarchs do not have personal lives. They have strategic marriages, arranged alliances, diplomatic unions. You cannot become involved with someone whose daily decisions could start or prevent wars." Tyler gently slid free from the array. His jumpsuit was streaked in shimmering gel that clung like stubborn glue, but he hardly noticed. "I'm not trying to get involved with the queen," he said. "I'm just trying to figure out what that connection was. And I meant what I said. I'm not trying to fix her." "Good," Vex said, "because fixing queens breaks planets." Tyler laughed. "You're the worst pep talk partner. And yet you survive," Vex muttered. When the job on Proxima 3 was finally finished and the lakes returned to normal physics, they moved to the next contract, routine maintenance on the Arcturon trade fleet. Tyler fell into the rhythm of his work, but his thoughts drifted again and again to the floating palace, to the queen whose bioluminescence shifted with her emotions, to the way she looked at him like he was the first person who ever spoke the truth without fear. Every night, as he drifted off in the cramped bunk of their ship, he wondered if she thought of him too. Time passed in star-swept jumps, hyperspace corridors, and long stretches of quiet nights. And then, exactly 6 weeks after their departure, the fuel cells thrummed with re-entry vectors as they aimed again for Azura Prime. "You have checked your uniform 3 times, Vex observed as Tyler tugged at the collar of his new, perfectly fitted jumpsuit. "You are preening." "It's called looking professional," Tyler muttered. "It is called preparing to see someone you're entangled with," Vex corrected. I'm logging this behavior for future study. Please don't. Their ship glided smoothly this time into the atmospheric docking bay. No explosions, no screeching metal, no accidental property destruction. Tyler almost expected applause from the palace engineers watching the landing, but instead he was greeted by someone far more unexpected. Minister Thalios stood waiting, his ceremonial robes gathered around him like a protective barrier. His hands were clasped in front of him, his expression the strained mixture of reverence and stress that seemed to be his natural state since Tyler arrived in the Queen's orbit. Technician Grant, Thalios said with a respectful bow. Her radiance regrets that she is currently occupied with a diplomatic matter. She requests that you retire to your newly prepared quarters and join her at sunset in the Celestial Garden. Tyler blinked. Newly prepared? Yes, Thalios said, clearing his throat. Her radiance insisted. Vex softly elbowed Tyler with one lower arm. Entangled. Don't start, Tyler whispered back. They followed the minister through gleaming hallways, deeper into the palace. The atmosphere felt subtly different this time. Lighter, more open, less fearful. The staff moved with confidence, and the guard presence was less rigid. Whatever had changed since their last visit seemed to radiate outward from the throne itself. When they reached Tyler's quarters, he stopped in the doorway, stunned. The room was vast, more like a suite than temporary lodging. Windows overlooked Azura Prime's stratified skies. A workbench had been crafted specifically for human hands. The bed looked large enough to sleep a small family. Soft light glowed in gentle gradients. You are certain, Vex said dryly, that you are not courting the Queen? Tyler swallowed. Pretty sure she's the one doing the courting. Tyler stepped inside the suite slowly, almost cautiously, as if the room might vanish if he moved too quickly. Everything felt impossibly deliberate. From the smooth curvature of the Lamidian crystal archways to the way warm ambient light shifted subtly when he entered, adjusting to human visual preferences. It was the kind of detail no one bothered with unless they genuinely wanted their guest to feel comfortable, or unless they wanted their guest to stay. He ran his fingers along the workbench, stunned at the craftsmanship. Every tool slot was tailored for human hand size, every compartment organized in a way he instantly understood. Someone had done their research, or someone had paid very close attention to him during his previous stay. This is not standard contractor lodging, Vex observed, walking a slow circle around the room with 2 hands behind his back and 2 hands clasped in front. He studied everything with analytical suspicion. Standard lodging does not cost more than a star cruiser. Tyler ignored him for a moment, his attention caught by a folded garment resting on a low crystal platform. It was clothing, formal but simple, crafted in a hybrid Lamidian human style. Deep blue fabric, embedded with faint threads that shimmered like starlight. His size, his shape, his aesthetic. He lifted the garment and exhaled. She really thought about this. Of course she did, Vex replied. Queens do nothing accidentally. Tyler set the garment back down gently, suddenly aware of the quickened beat of his heart. This is a lot, even for her. Indeed, Vex said, tilting his head. And yet you are eager. Tyler opened his mouth to deny it, but the truth snagged the words. He rubbed the back of his neck, a little embarrassed. Yeah, maybe I am. Vex crossed his arms, all 4 of them, and made a soft whirring noise in his throat that Tyler recognized as disapproval mixed with resignation. You are a repair technician. She is an interstellar sovereign. I am obligated to remind you of this disparity. I know, Tyler said quietly, but you do not care. Tyler almost laughed. Vex, I crash-landed through her ceiling, and she helped me lift a wall off 2 of her own workers. I don't know what the rules are anymore. Vex let out a long, frustrated exhale. Humans, the galaxy's most emotionally reckless species. Tyler snorted. Still love you too, buddy. Vex muttered something profane in Nexian under his breath. A soft chime echoed through the suite, an automated palace announcement signaling the approach of sunset. The sky outside shifted into a breathtaking gradient of violet and gold as the third moon began its descent toward Azura Prime's rolling horizon. Tyler exhaled, nerves coiling in his stomach. Guess she's waiting. Yes, Vex agreed. And judging from the ambient energy readings in this palace since we arrived, she has been waiting for quite some time. Tyler brushed off his jumpsuit, realizing belatedly that it looked far too informal for whatever awaited him in the celestial garden. His gaze drifted to the formal garment again. Vex saw the indecision. Wear it, the Nexian advised. Given the magnitude of this entanglement, appearing in proper attire is wise. Tyler slipped into the garment. Surprisingly, it fit like it had been molded onto him. Comfortable, flexible, and more elegant than anything he'd ever worn. When he caught his reflection in the crystalline window, he almost didn't recognize himself. You appear almost regal, Vex said. Don't say that, Tyler groaned. I fix things. No one dressed like this should fix things. Perhaps you fix queens now, Vex muttered. Tyler shot him a warning look, but the comment lingered in the air, half joke, half prophecy. He moved toward the door, but paused with his hand hovering over the control panel. For the first time since leaving the palace, doubt crept in. What if she'd change her mind? Tyler asked quietly. What if 6 weeks was enough to realize I'm just a mechanic? What if? Tyler, Vex interrupted, all 4 hands lifted in exasperation. In the time since you left, the Queen's emotional luminosity has created measurable atmospheric fluctuations within the palace. She has been impossible to ignore. If she had changed her mind, the entire staff would be celebrating the return of normal levels of terror. Tyler blinked. Thanks. You are welcome, Vex said flatly. Another chime echoed, gentle, expectant. Tyler drew a steadying breath. Okay, time to face whatever this is. As he stepped into the corridor, 2 palace attendants bowed and began escorting him toward the central spire. The pathways felt strangely familiar now. The soft glow of the crystalline walls, the faint hum of distant machinery, the subtle temperature adjustments made to accommodate human physiology. He noticed something else, too. People watched him, not with fear, not with disdain, not with confusion, but with curiosity, respect even. A few smiled. It hit him only then. Nixura's mood influenced the entire palace, and she had been different since he left. His footsteps echoed more loudly as they ascended toward the celestial garden, a place he had never seen but had heard whispered about in awe. The air grew lighter, cooler, tinged with the faint smell of luminous flora. Finally, the attendants stopped at an archway of crystal vines. This is as far as we go, one said softly. Her radiance awaits within. Tyler nodded, throat dry. The attendants bowed deeply, then stepped aside. He inhaled once, steadied himself, and crossed the threshold. With a first glimmer of floating blossoms and the glow of Azura Prime's sunset washed over him in a cascade of golden light. And somewhere deeper inside the garden, he sensed her presence, steady, powerful, unmistakably waiting for him. He stepped forward. Part 3 ended, right there, at the moment just before the Queen turned to face him. Tyler stepped across the crystalline threshold into the celestial garden, and the world shifted instantly. The air felt warmer, charged with a subtle hum that vibrated faintly against his skin. Luminescent flowers floated at varying heights, drifting gently as if suspended in slow-motion currents. Soft streams of water wound upward instead of down, swirling in as spiraling fountains that rejoined themselves in midair. Every color seemed more alive here. Blues deeper, golds warmer, purples glowing like nebulae. And in the center of it all stood Queen Nixura. She had her back to him, silver-white hair cascading freely down her back, catching starlight in a way that made each strand shimmer like electricity made visible. She wasn't adorned in the formal regalia he remembered. Tonight she wore simpler robes, though even simple Lamidian attire looked regal to human eyes. The shifting hues in her translucent skin glowed softly, in colors he didn't recognize. She turned the moment he stepped fully inside. Their eyes met. Her luminescence pulsed in a warm wave that rippled down her arms, across her collar, fading slowly into her chest. Tyler kind of forgot how to breathe. "You returned," Nixura said quietly, though her tone carried something weightier than the words. "Yeah," Tyler said, his voice catching slightly. Didn't want to miss the 6-week appointment window. That earned the faintest quirk of her lips, the closest thing to a smile she gave in public. But this wasn't public. This was private, personal, a place where rituals slipped away. 6 weeks and 2 days, she corrected softly. "You were late." Tyler felt something warm coil in his stomach. "Asteroid storm near Arcturus. Had to reroute." Nixura stepped toward him, not quickly, but with a deliberate, measured grace that somehow made it more intense than if she'd run to him. She reached him in 3 slow steps, her gaze never wavering from his. Then, with no hesitation, she wrapped her arms around him. Tyler froze for only a second before returning the embrace, his hands settling at her waist in a motion that felt natural and terrifying at the same time. Her body was cool to the touch, but her bioluminescence warmed against him like living sunlight. The patterns in her skin brightened, flaring softly, as if responding to his heartbeat. "I have missed your directness," she murmured against his shoulder, her voice quieter than he had ever heard it. Tyler swallowed. "I miss your honesty." When she finally pulled back, she studied his face with unsettling precision, as if searching for damage only she could detect. "You are well." "Yeah." Didn't get sucked into any black holes or eaten by malfunctioning terraforming arrays. "I am relieved." Her tone was factual, but her glow betrayed something more turbulent. Then the moment shifted. The warmth in her luminescence dimmed slightly, cooling into more complex patterns, strands of gold threaded with deeper blue. A sign of unease? Conflict? Something serious. "There is something you must know," she said. "A situation arose while you traveled." Tyler straightened subtly. "Is everything okay?" "Prince Valerian of the Astral Dominion has issued a formal ultimatum." Her voice sharpened, though not with anger, with restraint. "He demands I accept his renewed courtship or face economic and diplomatic sanctions." Tyler blinked. "That's not courtship. That's political extortion." "So it seems. What did you tell him?" Nixura stepped back just enough for the floating blossoms to illuminate her face fully. The expression she wore was calm, too calm. The controlled calm of a queen preparing for conflict. "I informed him that I have already chosen a consort." Tyler felt something in his chest lurch. "Oh, well, that's good, right? Congratulations. Whoever he is, I hope he treats you." "It is you, Tyler." The gardens seemed to go silent. Tyler stared, certain he'd misheard. "Me?" Nixura's eyes held his without wavering. "I named you my chosen consort before the council. The choice is mine by sovereign right. They have accepted it." The blood drained from his face. "Nixura, I mean your radiance, I'm flattered, but I'm a mechanic. And I am queen of 27 star systems," she replied evenly. "We are both aware of our titles." "That's exactly my point," he said, hands half raising in helpless emphasis. "This isn't a small step. It changes everything. You could start a war with the Astral Dominion because you picked the wrong guy." Nixura moved closer, her gaze steady. "I did not pick the wrong man." Tyler stared at her, speechless. "The resonance we experienced," she continued softly. "The connection. It is real. It is rare. It matters." "Nixura, this decision was mine," she said firmly. "I chose without pressure, without ritual, without political calculation. I chose you." His heart hammered, but he still wasn't breathing. For several seconds, Tyler couldn't find any words. His mind spun with images. Interstellar headlines, angry diplomats, entire fleets mobilizing because the queen of an empire had chosen a nobody from Earth. "Nixura, this is huge," he said finally, voice low. "It's not like naming a favorite restaurant. It's declaring an alliance. A bomb the whole galaxy is going to dissect. You could destabilize half the region because of this." Her luminescence shifted, cool colors dissolving into warmer golds. "You speak of consequences," she said, "as if I do not live with consequences in every breath I take." "That's not what I meant." "But it is truth," she continued, her tone not sharp, but firm. "Every choice I make shapes empires. Every refusal stirs enemies. Every acceptance strengthens or weakens borders. You fear for the galaxy. I understand. I fear for it too. But do not mistake me for someone who chooses carelessly. Tyler ran a hand through his hair, pacing once in a slow half-circle. The garden's floating lilies rotated in response to his motion, as if the ecosystem itself was watching him think. I just don't want you risking your entire reign over someone unpredictable. He gestured helplessly at himself. I don't fit the mold. I don't have pedigree, rank, training, diplomacy, anything. That is precisely why I chose you, Nixura said. He froze. She stepped closer, her height casting a soft glow over him. Royalties seek alliances that strengthen power. Politicians seek leverage. Suitors seek to elevate their houses. You seek none of these. You see me, not a crown, not a throne, not a gateway to influence. Tyler swallowed hard. I see a woman trying her best. Nixura's breath caught, barely noticeable, but real. Her luminescent patterns fluttered like a heartbeat. And, Tyler added softly, I see someone who doesn't deserve to be bullied into marriage. Her jaw set at that, a spark of fire in her eyes. Valerian's ultimatum is an insult, not merely to me, but to my people. My sovereignty cannot be bartered through coercion. And you think naming me your consort sends the strongest message. It sends the truest one. Tyler let out a breath somewhere between disbelief and awe. Nixura, people don't choose partners like this. Lamidians do, she corrected gently. We choose when resonance appears. We honor it. We do not force connection with those who offer only strategic promises. But we don't even know what this is, he whispered. We've known each other days, not months, not years. Her expression softened, not as queen to subject, but as one person speaking to another. That is why I want to consent, she said. Your agreement matters as much as mine. I have declared my choice. But for the bond to stand, you must choose too. Tyler felt something inside him loosen, some quiet tension he hadn't realized he was holding. You really mean that? He asked. This isn't an order? Not a royal command. No, Nixura said, shaking her head slowly. This is the one matter I refuse to command. The garden's floating lights glowed brighter around them, drifting nearer as if drawn by the weight of the moment. A breeze, impossible in a shielded dome, rustled the bioluminescent petals, sending shimmering motes swirling through the air. Tyler looked down at his hands, then up at her again. I'm not afraid of you, he said, as though admitting a forbidden secret. Everyone else jumps when you breathe too loudly, but I don't, and I don't know why. Nixura stepped closer, close enough that the glow from her skin reflected in his eyes. I know why, she murmured. Because your presence does not shrink before mine. Because your spirit does not cower. Because you are not changed by my power. Tyler felt warmth rise in his face. I don't pretend around you. That's all. No, she said, voice softer now. That is not all. That is rare. He exhaled shakily. So what happens if I say no? She didn't flinch. Then I will respect it, publicly and privately. You will remain a consultant if you wish. You will come and go as freely as before. And I will ensure the astral dominion understands that pressure will not sway me into binding myself to someone for politics. Tyler's gaze softened. And if I say yes? Nixura lifted her hand, hovering it near his but not touching yet. Not after the shock that passed between them last time. Then the garden will witness our agreement, she said. And so will the stars. The floating flora brightened, as if expecting that answer. But Tyler didn't take her hand. Not yet. Before I decide, he said quietly, I have one question. Nixura tilted her head. Ask. Do you want me, Nixura? You. Not the Empire. Not the political message. Not the symbolic rejection of Valerian. You. Her glow stilled. For the first time since he met her, her bioluminescence fell into a single steady color, a soft, radiant gold. Yes, she said. I want you. The single word hung in the air, soft, steady, utterly certain. Yes, Nixura said again, more firmly now. I want you, Tyler Grant of Earth. Something inside him cracked open at those words, some tightly wound, not loosening all at once. The Queen of 27-star systems wasn't speaking as a monarch, or as a figurehead, or as the subject of diplomatic pressure. She was speaking as a person, as a woman whose entire existence was watched, judged, dissected, and who had found someone she could be unguarded with. Tyler took a slow breath, grounding himself. "All right," he whispered. "Then can I tell you what I want?" Nixura nodded once, her eyes locked on his. "I want this to be real," he said. "Not symbolic, not strategic, not something you use to get Valerian off your back. I don't want to be a political shield or a palace accessory or a headline. You will be none of those things," Nixura said. "Not if I choose you. Not if we choose each other." And Tyler continued, "I want the freedom to still be me, to still work, to still fix things, to still travel when I need to. I don't want to be locked away in some gilded chamber because I'm suddenly royal adjacent." Nixura stepped closer, her voice soft as starlight. "I would not keep you in a cage, Tyler, even a golden one. You would live as you have lived, only with more stability, more support, more—" She paused, searching for the word. "More companionship, if you want it." Tyler huffed a breath of disbelief. "This is surreal." Her lips curved in a faint smile. "It is." For a moment they simply stood there, surrounded by floating petals and drifting light, two silhouettes framed against the swirling gold and violet sky of Azura Prime. The garden hummed faintly, resonating with their proximity, as if the palace itself was listening. Tyler lifted his hand slowly. Nixura mirrored him, raising her own. This time, he didn't hesitate. Their fingers touched. A pulse of energy surged through them. Not violent, not startling, but alive. Like the hum of a starship engine starting after a long silence. Like a deep harmonic chord vibrating through the bones. Nixura inhaled sharply, her luminescence bursting across her skin in radiant patterns. Blues, golds, violet strands weaving like nebulae across her arms and cheeks and throat. The glow traveled up Tyler's arm as well, a faint shimmer dancing briefly beneath his skin, not painful, just electric. The floating flowers flared brighter. The water streams shifted shape. The entire garden responded as if the atmosphere itself recognized the bond. Nixura's eyes widened. The resonance, it's stronger than before. Tyler squeezed her hand lightly. "Is that good?" "It is unprecedented," she whispered. "But yes, it is very good." He exhaled a half-laugh. "So this is a thing, then?" Her voice lowered. "It is whatever we name it. But in my culture, this level of resonance is not dismissed. It is honored." "And you want this?" he asked. "I want you," she answered. And then, for the first time since he had met her, she leaned in, slowly, intentionally, giving him every chance to pull away. He didn't. Their lips met in a kiss that sent another cascade of light rippling through the garden. Soft blossoms burst into bioluminescent flare. Water spiraled upward in radiant arcs. The force field dome overhead shimmered with gold, reflecting the resonance between them in every direction. It wasn't a dramatic, desperate kiss. It was gentle, certain, grounded. The kind that said, "This is real, this is ours, this is chosen." When they finally separated, Nixura rested her forehead lightly against his, her breath cool against his cheek. "The council will demand explanations," she murmured. "Valerian will rage. The astral dominion may attempt retaliation. The galaxy will talk. Let them," Tyler said softly. Her luminescence warmed at that. He lifted her hand again. "But I need one thing from you first." Nixura drew back slightly, studying him with curious intensity. "Name it." "No surprises," Tyler said. "If we do this, we do it together. You tell me the political risks. I tell you the personal ones. We decide things side by side. You wish to stand beside me, as an equal?" she asked. "Yes," Tyler replied. "Or not at all." The glow that passed over her skin was unlike anything he'd seen, deep gold suffused with shimmering white. A Lamidian sign of profound approval. "Then we are aligned," she said, "and the choice is made." Tyler took a breath. A long, steady breath. Then he nodded. All right, Nixura. Yes, I choose you too. The garden burst into radiant color again, petals spiraling upward in celebration, lights shimmering like distant galaxies. Somewhere in the palace, protocols updated, diplomatic alerts triggered, advisors gasped in shock. But here, in the celestial garden, it was just them. A queen who found someone who wasn't afraid of her shadow. A mechanic who found someone whose light didn't blind him. And the bond between them, acknowledged, accepted, chosen. Part 4 came to a close in the glow of that shared decision, beneath the shifting heavens of Azura Prime. Everyone in the celestial garden would have sworn the air itself glowed after that kiss. The bioluminescent flowers slowly dimmed back to their normal brilliance. The swirling water streams settled into gentler spirals, and the shimmering dome overhead cooled from molten gold to a softer starlit sheen. But the world was not the same as it had been a few minutes before. The queen of the Lamidian Empire and a human mechanic from a distant backwater planet had chosen each other. Not as a symbolic arrangement, not as a political necessity, as something real. Nixura let their hands part slowly, the lingering tingling along her fingers finally fading. Tyler exhaled a shaky breath and glanced toward the exit of the garden. Sooner or later, he said softly, we have to go back out there, don't we? Soon, Nixura replied. Not yet. Buying time for the shockwave. Buying time for us, she corrected. They stood together in companionable silence, watching Azura Prime's swirling clouds darken as the sun dipped further past the horizon. Finally, Nixura straightened, the queen returning to the surface of the woman beneath. When we leave this garden, she said, we step into consequence. The council will demand a formal audience. The court will boil with rumor. Valerian will attempt retaliation. Are you ready for that? Honestly, Tyler said. No. She raised a brow. But, he added, I'm not running. Something in her posture eased at that, a small tension she hadn't noticed she'd been carrying. Then let us not delay the inevitable. Side by side, they exited the garden. The palace felt different now, as if its corridors were holding their breath. Word moved faster than any messenger. By the time Nixura and Tyler approached the council chamber, guards were already exchanging looks, attendants whispered behind their hands, and luminescent wall minerals shifted in uneasy colors that mirrored the mood of the place. At the great crystalline doors of the council hall, Captain Kell waited in full ceremonial armor, helm tucked under one arm. Your Radiance, he said with a bow. The council convened the moment your decision became official in the system registry. They await clarification. Then we shall clarify, Nixura said simply. Kell's gaze flicked briefly to Tyler, studying him as if seeing him for the first time through a new lens. There was no contempt there, no open approval either, just a soldier trying to understand the new variable in his queen's life. The doors parted, revealing the assembled council of Lamidian ministers, education, defense, trade, diplomacy, culture, technology. Crystal panels spiraled above them, projecting star maps and scrolling legislative texts. Conversations cut off the instant Nixura stepped inside. Your Radiance, the first minister began, rising. We were informed that you have named a consort. Correct, Nixura said, striding to the center of the chamber. Tyler Grant of Earth. Dozens of eyes landed on the human at her side. Some curious, some horrified, some cautiously hopeful. The minister protocol looked moments from fainting. Your Radiance, with respect. He is not of noble blood. He holds no political position. He commands no fleet, no trade house, no planetary council. He is a mechanic, Tyler said, saving the minister from having to spit it out. You can say it. I'm not offended. A ripple of shocked murmurs passed around the ring of officials. Nixura's gaze swept the chamber. Our laws state that the sovereign chooses a consort when she finds one whose energy and character resonate with her own. I have made my choice. The council's role is to advise, not overrule. The defense minister, a stern figure with crystalline armor plating fused into his formal robes, leaned forward. The Astral Dominion has already transmitted a list of sanctions, Your Radiance. Trade tariffs, travel restrictions, military repositioning. Choosing a consort perceived as unsuitable may embolden them. And accepting their coercion, Nixura replied, would tell the entire galaxy that our sovereignty is for sale. I will not begin any bond, under those conditions. The trade minister shifted uncomfortably. We do not question your right to choose your radiance, but there are practical concerns. Supply chains, transit routes, defense pacts. Tyler raised a hand. The fact that he did it like he was in a classroom rather than a galactic council chamber seemed to startle several ministers into silence. Can I say something? He asked. Nixura's expression didn't change, but her bioluminescent patterns warmed slightly. You may. Tyler stepped forward, acutely aware of every eye on him. Look, I get that from where you're standing this looks like your queen just threw an engine core into a delicate power grid. High risk, unpredictable output, maybe some sparks. But here's the thing. I'm not here to take anything from you. He pointed loosely toward the star maps. You already have fleets, packs, established trade routes. I don't bring armies or fortune. I bring problem solving. Some of the older ministers looked skeptical. A few of the younger ones leaned in. I've worked in half a dozen different systems, Tyler continued. I've seen what happens when powerful people make decisions because they're scared of losing face, or because they're trying to impress someone, or because they're too proud to admit a system's about to blow. It always ends the same way, catastrophic failure that was absolutely avoidable. You imply that we are on that path, the diplomatic minister said coolly. Tyler met his gaze. I'm saying your queen just refused to let an outside power engineer her marriage. That's not reckless. That's integrity. You think Valerian will respect you more if you cave to his threats? Or if you stand your ground and still find a way to keep the peace? Find a way, the defense minister echoed. Tyler nodded. Yeah, you've got engineers, diplomats, strategists. So does the Astral Dominion. They're not a monolith. Not everyone in their system will want a trade conflict. You push back on the coercion, but leave a door open for cooperation in areas that make sense. Energy grids, joint research, medical advances, preferably ones that don't hinge on who your queen marries. Several ministers exchanged thoughtful looks despite themselves. Nixura watched him, light patterns flowing in a slow, steady wave. The technology minister, a willowy Lamidian with a mind rumored to rival quantum processors, spoke for the first time. You propose de-escalation without capitulation. I propose fixing the problem at its source, Tyler said. Valerian's ego. A strangled noise escaped the protocol minister. But more importantly, Tyler continued quickly, the structural imbalance that lets him wield this much leverage. Your empire has relied on certain trade routes for too long. Diversify them. Invest in alternatives. Make it more costly for anyone, including the Astral Dominion, to threaten your economy. The trade minister eyed him sharply. You suggest we reorganize our entire export distribution model because you have been breathing our air for less than a week? Tyler shrugged. I'm just the guy who sees microfractures before they become full system failures. But your engineers already trust my diagnostics. That landed harder than he expected. Soren, the palace chief engineer, happened to be standing in the back of the chamber. He stepped forward and bowed. With respect, ministers, Soren said, technician Grant's assessment of our stabilizers extended their lifespan by more than a century. His predictions regarding cascading failures have been distressingly accurate. Silence fell again. Nixura took a step forward, her presence filling the room. Every alliance we have formed has been based on mutual benefit and respect. I will not bind myself to a man who thinks he can threaten my people into accepting him. I have chosen a partner who sees systems clearly, mechanical and political. Someone who will tell me the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. That is worth more than any fleet he could bring. The council absorbed her words like a stone dropped into still water, ripples expanding outward. So, the first minister said at last, you intend to defy Valerian and his ultimatum. I intend, Nixura replied, to send him a message. Tyler's brow furrowed. What kind of message? One that clarifies both our boundaries and our intentions, she said. We will not tolerate coercion, but we will not close the door to diplomacy either. If the Astral Dominion wishes to work with us, it will be on equal terms. In your chosen consort, the protocol minister asked delicately, how shall the court address this? Nixura's lips curved. With the respect due to the sovereign's decision, she said, and with patience. We will not move at ritual pace. There will be no rushed binding ceremony for foreign eyes. We will proceed on our own terms. Tyler glanced at her, gratitude in his expression. She was giving them time, space to grow into this bond instead of freezing it in ceremonial crystal overnight. One by one, the ministers bowed their heads. The council acknowledges your right of choice, the first minister said. We will prepare for potential repercussions from the Astral Dominion and begin quietly diversifying our trade dependencies. The meeting adjourned. As the council members filed out in clusters, voices low and urgent, Tyler let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. That went better than I expected, he admitted. Better than I feared, Nixura agreed. Worse than I hoped. Story of leadership, he said. You rarely get your best-case outcome. She glanced at him, faint amusement in her eyes. You handled yourself well. I didn't insult anyone important, so I'll take that as a win. On the contrary, she said, you insulted Valerian's ego quite thoroughly. He blinked. Oh, right. That. He will send a message soon, she added. He will not leave this unchallenged. Then we'll answer it together, Tyler said. Her luminescence warmed. She did not say it aloud, but the thought settled in her mind with surprising comfort. Together was no longer a dangerous wish. It was a plan. Over the next several days, the palace adjusted, awkwardly at first, then with increasing fluidity, to the presence of a human consort who still insisted on crawling through access conduits and showing up in the maintenance base. Tyler spent his mornings in system review sessions with Soren and the engineering teams, afternoons consulting with trade advisors about vulnerable infrastructure routes, and evenings with Nixura, when she could steal an hour from the endless duties of rule. He refused to sit on a ceremonial chair beside her throne. Instead, he took a seat one step down, close enough for private asides, far enough to make the hierarchy clear. You are confusing the court, Minister Thalios told him one day, almost wringing his hands. Consorts usually either stand on a pedestal or vanish into private wings. I'm not furniture, Tyler replied, and I'm not an ornament. Thalios stared, then sighed. No, you are not. Despite himself, the old matchmaker eventually began directing some of the more unbearable suitors and their families to other opportunities. After all, the queen was no longer available. And if she found happiness in somewhere as unexpected as a human mechanic, perhaps his models needed updating. The message from Valerian arrived exactly 9 days later. Projected in the throne room as a shimmering hologram, the prince's handsome face seemed carved from ice. Queen Nixura, his voice boomed, your decision insults the Astral Dominion and the ancient accords between our realms. To choose a commoner from a minor species over a prince of the Dominion is an affront not only to me, but to the balance of power itself. You leave me no choice but to interpret this as hostile intent. Nixura watched the message in silence, hands resting calmly on the arms of her throne. Valerian continued. Tariffs and sanctions will proceed as outlined. However, should you reconsider your rash choice and dissolve this arrangement, we are prepared to renegotiate terms. Tyler glanced at Nixura. Her light had taken on a cool, precise pattern. Not anger, not distress. Calculating. You may convey this response, she said to the recording unit once the message ended. To the Astral Dominion and to Prince Valerian personally. She stood. Lamidian acknowledges the right of every sovereign to seek alliances. We do not acknowledge the right of any sovereign to dictate our internal choices. My selection of a consort is not a declaration of hostility. It is a personal and cultural decision entirely within my jurisdiction. Should you choose to proceed with sanctions, we will adapt and strengthen our networks accordingly. We will not, however, reconsider under pressure. She paused. As for balance of power, true balance is built on mutual respect, not threaten punishment. If the Astral Dominion wishes to pursue cooperation in areas of shared interest, my envoys will listen. If you wish to discuss your bruised pride, Prince Valerian, I suggest you consult a therapist, not my trade department. Tyler almost choked. Kel's mouth twitched, just once like a soldier fighting a smile at the wrong time. The message was sent. The sanctions began. And then something curious happened across the region. Several mid-tier powers, long irritated by the Dominion's heavy-handed tactics, reached out quietly to Lamidian. If the Queen was willing to stand up to Valerian, perhaps there was room for new coalitions, new trade routes, new agreements that didn't revolve around one prince's ambitions. Nixura didn't gloat. She worked tirelessly alongside her council to shore up her people's stability. Tyler watched her navigate crisis after crisis with a steady, evolving balance of steel and listening. When she grew angry in council, she no longer erupted blindly like a storm. She channeled the heat into precise pressure, sharp questions, restructuring plans. And sometimes, when she felt herself nearing the edge, she would catch Tyler's eye. He didn't have to say anything. The reminder was there. You're not carrying this alone. The moment that truly anchored their reputation, though, the story that would spread across the galaxy and fuel countless human ex-alien queen romance posts and sci-fi story retellings, came 3 months later. A delegation from a smaller, but notoriously arrogant alliance arrived, led by an ambassador who believed that the best way to negotiate was to provoke. He insulted Lamidian customs, questioned Nixura's leadership, took subtle shots at her choice of consort, calling it a sentimental indulgence, prodded at every old wound, every insecurity. The court could see it happening, the Queen's luminescence flaring hotter, faster, shading toward the dangerous reds that preceded palace legends. Ministers tensed. Guards shifted their weight. Several dignitaries who had heard stories of her fury made tiny, strategic adjustments so that they would be closer to the exits. Tyler watched the patterns racing beneath her skin. He recognized the signs the way he recognized an overheating reactor. The ambassador smirked, leaning back. Perhaps your radiance, your mechanic, might adjust your temperament as easily as he adjusted your ancient machinery. Or perhaps some systems are simply beyond repair. Nixura rose. The room seemed to contract. Her height, her presence, her power filled every corner. Her voice, when she spoke, rolled like quiet thunder. "You presume much," she began, and the first hint of a legendary storm crept into the edges of her tone. The ambassador's smirk faltered just a little. People on the edges of the throne room began edging away, very discreetly. Tyler's mind raced. He could let it happen. Maybe the man deserved it. Maybe the galaxy needed a reminder of why provoking this queen was a bad idea. But that wasn't what she wanted anymore. That wasn't who she was trying to be. So, while every other suitor, diplomat, and courtier in the galaxy would have stepped back at that moment, Tyler stepped forward. The court went completely silent as he walked up the steps, right into the radius of power that made most people tremble and did the most wildly inappropriate thing any being had ever done next to that throne. He hugged her, in front of everyone. Nixura stiffened in shock for a heartbeat, her luminescence flaring bright gold. The court froze, eyes wide, lungs collectively forgetting how to function. Then something extraordinary happened. Her light shifted. The frantic, jagged patterns of anger softened, slowed, became waves instead of spikes. Her shoulders relaxed under his touch. The storm didn't vanish. It redirected, grounding out through the contact instead of exploding outward. Tyler lowered his voice, just for her. "He's trying to get a reaction," he murmured near her ear. "Don't give him the one he wants." Her hands, which had curled into fists, uncurled. She exhaled. The ambassador, suddenly realizing that his little performance wasn't going as planned, shifted uncomfortably. Nixura nodded once, just perceptibly. Tyler stepped back, giving her space, but staying close. When she spoke again, her voice was calm, controlled, infinitely more dangerous. "Ambassador," she said, "my mechanic has indeed adjusted my systems." He has reminded me that strength is not measured only in volume. I will not dignify your attempts at provocation with the display you came seeking. The ambassador swallowed. As for your proposed trade agreement, she continued, Lamidian will consider it only if you return with an attitude of mutual respect. Until then, this audience is concluded. She turned away. Guards stepped forward, not in violence, but in firm escort. The ambassador and his party were guided out with immaculate courtesy and absolutely no room for argument. The throne room remained silent for 3 whole heartbeats. Then, slowly, like a wave beginning far out at sea, it filled with something no one had quite expected. Respect. Not the brittle, fearful obedience Nixura had been fed for years. Something steadier, warmer, as if they were seeing not just the queen who could shatter them if she chose, but the one who was choosing not to. Thalios, watching from the side, dabbed suspicious moisture from his eyes. Perhaps, he whispered to himself, I have been matchmaking in the wrong demographic all along. Later that night, on the same terrace where they had first really spoken, Nixura and Tyler stood side by side, watching Azura Prime storms roll beneath them. You risked much today, she said quietly, stepping in front of me like that. Yeah, he admitted. But I figured if anyone in this palace is allowed to hug the queen mid-rage, it's probably the guy who signed up for the emotional maintenance package. She huffed a laugh, light flickering sympathetically across her skin. Emotional maintenance, she repeated. An unusual specialty. Hey, it's part of the service, he said. No job too big, no malfunction too weird. She turned to face him fully, her features soft in the reflected light of the gas giant below. You have changed me, Tyler. He shook his head gently. No, you changed yourself. I just handed you a few tools. Her luminescence warmed at that. They leaned together, foreheads touching, glowing softly against the endless night. Across the galaxy, stories would spread about the alien queen whose rage had driven suitors from every corner of known space, until one human didn't run. He just walked up, spoke plain truths, put grease-stained hands on ancient systems, and hugged the storm instead of fleeing it, and slowly, patiently, helped turn that storm into something that could light the sky without burning everything beneath it. If you've listened all the way to the end of this sci-fi romance story about a human mechanic and an alien queen, drop a comment with what you liked most. The political drama, the emotional moments, or the hug that shocked the entire throne room. Your feedback, whether positive or critical, really helps improve future stories. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next Human X alien love story, galactic adventure, or interstellar drama. And if you want more right now, there's another story on the screen that I think you'll really enjoy. Big hug, across the stars this time, and see you in the next one.